NFL Week 7 is over, and it's time to look back on what that means for our fantasy football rosters. Ed, let's start what we always do, and that is with some fantasy heroes.
Fantasy heroes.
He caught Flacco earlier in the season for his fancy scores, but Chase caught 16 passes from Flacco this week. Now things are very different.
We predicted good things for Quinshon Judkins, but a hat-trick of touchdowns wasn't on our radar. My, am I glad not to be a Dolphins fan.
Let's not beat Aronde the Bush. Gadsden went from Week 7 tight end punt to the hottest waiver wire target on Week 8 as he charged through the Colts defense on his way to 164 yards and a touchdown.
Run, CMC, run! He's walked this way to 7 top 10 weeks and he looks absolutely unstoppable. Why? Because it's like that, and that's the way it is.
The Slim Reaper brought down the scythe on the Vikings this week as he worked his way to 9 receptions for 183 yards and a touchdown.
When the crowd say bold, select a target, and that's what Nix did. 50 attempts spread across 9 players as he finished with 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and was our QB1 of Week 7. Wonderful work as always, Edward. I've just decided I'm going to put the mic around for the next bit so you can hear me more clearly. But shall we move on for some fantasy zeros?
Let's do it.
Fantasy zeros.
They say that Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, you're a sophomore receiver now, Mr. Adunze, so stop making excuses.
Not very sparkly performance from Saquon Barkley, which starkly contrasts to last year.
Mr. Goddard was more of a frightened sparrow than a mighty eagle in Week 7. Now's not the time to fly south for winter, Dallas.
Ashton Genty will have created plenty of worry with his lowest ever fantasy score. At least he has a bye week to regroup.
1 reception, Jalen. You can waddle your way to the naughty step and think about what you've done.
The Saints were hardly marching anywhere, but Caleb Williams still struggled and managed just 15 completions, -2 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception for his worst ever fantasy score.
Oh, we're a little bit slow, but I'm going to go. We have nailed it as usual. If you like Heroes and Zeros every week, then please do give us a subscribe. We'll be back with you every week for our review show. And Ed, we want to start off having a look at some fancy talking points for Week 7. And the Bengals were fancy relevant again. How exciting. Or unexpected. Which is it?
All about Joe.
Is it because the elite Joe Flacco, the elite Super Bowl winner Joe Flacco was in town? Is that the reason?
Well, he's just someone with a bit of nous there, isn't there? You know, he's releasing the ball quickly, and the O-line seems to have stepped up. They seem to have a bit of confidence in him. And yeah, I mean, Chase is proving just what an absolutely ridiculous talent he is. And there was even evidence of a run game against the Steelers, which was the thing that shocked me the most.
A run game from the Bengals?
I know.
So Jamar Chase ended up wide receiver 1, T. Higgins wide receiver 12, Noah Fant tight end 9, Joe Flacco QB 6. Chase Brown was lower in the pecking order, but was there, and we've not seen that the last couple of weeks. Rodgers, Warren, Freiermuth all had solid fantasy games. DK Metcalf was quiet with only 8 fantasy points. I think it was one of those games where it just didn't go as we expected. You can't really read a huge amount into anything, but I do feel we need to be a bit happier again with our shares in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. It's looking better than with Mr. Browning, isn't it?
Indeed, yeah. I mean, Jamar Chase, all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure now after Week 7, he's wide receiver 1 overall. Yes, that's because he's had, I think, 3 or 4 monster weeks. But yeah, it wasn't looking like that a couple of weeks ago. It was looking very, very dicey for Chase and Higgins fantasy managers.
Final London game showed that the Rams can do it without Puka Nacua. 3 receiving touchdowns for Devontae Adams. Troy McCrew, 26.5 fantasy points. Another great week of fantasy for Stafford, who is on for his best fantasy season since 2021. He was QB5 overall then. Nothing much to talk about for the Jags, except have we seen the Travis Hunter breakout game? Who knows? I don't want to put anything too much into what we see from the Jags at the minute. I will need to see it 2, maybe 3 times in a row to be truly confident. 8 receptions, 101 yards and a touchdown, though, did eclipse Brian Thomas, who also left the game with a shoulder injury. Hunter was essentially full-time on offense as well. With Jacksonville on their bye next week, that's something that I think is going to be really interesting to see what that looks like in Week 9, isn't it?
Indeed, yeah. We'll talk a bit more about Travis Hunter shortly when we do a check-in on our rookies.
Do you want to take your victory lap on Quinton Judkins? You cautiously suggested him as a potential DFS captain pick for Fantasy Game Day. Caution was not needed.
No, it was not. He was very much a candidate for captain. Yeah, I mean, I said he'd be solid, but I did not expect 25 carries for 84 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very efficient, finished as RB3. I mean, the Dolphins were absolutely terrible, and they ruined my red zone accumulator. But yeah, Judkins looked very good.
On that game, after in such profound fashion, does Mike McDaniel have a job for long?
I don't know. He just looks so cool in his sunglasses. How could you sack a man that just looks so cool?
maybe that's what he's going for. He's going to keep a job on Vibe. So I've not checked before we started recording. At the time, our last awareness, he was still employed and he was still looking cool. Tua was deservedly benched after a horrible couple of games. Not permanent fixes. Quinn Ewers is not the answer. Was it sure that Tua is unreliable with fantasy QBs, even in deeper leagues? What are you feeling on Tua? What are we thinking?
Yeah, I'm done with him as any sort of fancy prospect. He's who knows what's going to happen next game. We like you say, it's quite like I think Mike McDaniel is in the hottest of hot seats, isn't he? And I mean, the only reason I think that Tua will continue to start is because Quinn Ewers is just, is not the one to kind of step in and make a mark. So, but yeah, as a fantasy quarterback, I'm done with Tua.
Rashee Rice is back. I kind of get it. The injury last year was catastrophic. I think releasing your own hype video after being banned for what it was banned for is a little bit wide of the mark. I was very cautious with Rashee Rice. I started him in one place, left him on the bench because I just wasn't sure what his returns were after. We've not seen him for over a year now. That was very silly of me. Straight back into the action and looking good, considering he's not played for a year. Looking really, really good. The next bit
helps that Mahomes is at the top of his game, isn't he? And to step back into that, Mahomes is different level at the moment, isn't he?
I started writing my notes as I was watching the games on Sunday. I'd written after his touchdown, is Kyle Monongai a fancy gremlin? After that short rush for a touchdown, he then went to put up 81 total yards on 13 attempts. He's one to watch moving forwards, isn't he? I think we're going to talk about him later on as well. The receptions we spoke about for the Bears last week and how spread around they were. So this week, 5 for Moore, 6 for Dunzo, 4 for Loveland. Lovely to see. 3 for Zacchaeus, 2 for Burden. Is Rome Dunzo's hot streak kind of coming to a bit of an end? I don't know.
We did discuss earlier in the season that he was kind of the hottest of hot sophomore receivers, but it's not quite panned out like that way on a consistent basis. I still expect him to have big weeks, but yeah, it does seem to be over the last couple of weeks evening out a little bit.
A thrilling end to the Giants-Broncos game. Obviously, that was early hours of the morning for us in the UK, but watching the climax of that was just... phenomenal game. Bo Nix put up a monster performance, his best fantasy score of his career so far. Spread the ball around so that Sutton, Mims, and Franklin all put up fantasy relevant scores as well. As did Wandale Robinson and Scatterboo. Had another good performance. Once again, we've said we're going to talk about the rookies later on, but are we ready to call Jackson Dart the best QB from this class yet? Or is that far too premature and am I jinxing it?
There's no one else close to him, is there? I think he's far and above the standout QB at the moment. I mean, and he'll only be absolutely good that the Giants somehow managed to throw that game away. I don't know how they lost that game.
It's going to be really interesting after the game last week whether the Eagles have a plan for him this week. That's something that is going to be interesting. Our defense is going to start to suss him out a little bit. Or, I mean, I think we saw against Broncos, there's those brilliant plays that you can get because of his playing style and the bravery of being a rookie. We also saw the mistakes that happen when you've got that playing style and the naivety of a rookie. Certainly, though, the best start we could have hoped for from a fantasy point of view for him. Colts.
Comfortable win in LA against the Chargers. I mean, JT, absolute beast, ridiculous run of form he's on at the moment. 7 rushing touchdowns in 3 games. Pittman's wide receiver 10. Tyler Warren's tight end 3. And Daniel Jones is QB5. I need to listen back to our Colts deep dive show to hear how ridiculous we sounded, slagging off the Colts left, right, and centre, because it will be hilarious to listen back to that.
Do you know what won't be hilarious? It will be the fact that I remember on that saying, why are we counting Danny Jones out? Is it a Giants issue that we've had with him? Is he going to come into a different offense and be better? I didn't say he was going to. I merely asked the question, but I'm taking that as a small victory. What I imagine was a largely very inaccurate show.
Yeah, I do genuinely want to listen back to that to see how off we were. Finishing off with the Cardinals, struggling as we might have expected. A couple of good weeks for Jacoby Brissett, though, against the Colts and then the Packers. I mean, assuming Kyler Murray comes straight back in after the bye against Dallas, should it be that straightforward?
I don't know. This season, nothing seems straightforward. Every time we think we know, we say this season, we say this every season, don't we? This is the nature of the NFL, is that what we think we know, we then don't know. As we're saying, the Colts, we knew were going to have a horrible season and do nothing. Yeah. Look what's happening. We knew the Ravens were going to march towards a dominant season, breeze into the playoffs and make it to the Super Bowl. It's not happening. Yeah, I think I've given up on saying what I think will happen. I felt maybe we should just stop now. Who knows?
Okay, that's the end of the show. We'll see you next week. Finishing off the Cardinals, Trey McBride having the season we expected. He's the top target by distance, tight end 1 on the week again. A few flashes from MHJ, but not making the leap forward we might have hoped for as a sophomore receiver.
Not fancy relevant, but a couple of things that are on my radar this week as well. I find it difficult to like Patrick Mahomes. I think in the same reason that any rival that is at the top of the game, it's easy to dislike them. But the acting of this never flipping works fake, I mean, you can't not laugh at that. It's just like absolute fair dues. If that was any other QB, I'd be saying it was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen. It's got a little bit of Mahomes on it, so I don't want to give too much credit. And then any regular listeners to the show know that on my radar massively are non-elite, and I mean like the best of the best elite, the purest form of the word elite, players wearing the number 0 is a massive thing on my radar. As now, a kicker's wearing the number 99.
Oh, okay.
That annoys me too.
Okay. Right.
Jude McAtumney wearing number 9, not for me. He, after missing that kick, he's had some deplorable stick on social media, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I just want to weigh in with there's certain numbers I think you have to. 99 is a bold statement for a kicker for me. Once again, not fancy relevant, not even relevant. I just wanted to mention it.
No, you mentioned away, Mark.
So please do take a moment to subscribe, like, give us a share as well, especially if you would like to hear my irrational, nonsensical moanings about things that do not matter in the slightest. But what does feel like it matters at this point is the progress of the rookies this season, especially from a dynasty point of view and from a redraft point of view, and what we thought we knew at the start of the season without seeing any evidence on an NFL field. Is that actually the case? So we can have a check-in on our rookie draft ADP value check, looking back at round 1, and then some other notables as well. We'll be looking at this is the round 1 from Dynasty rookie draft. So we are thinking from a Dynasty point of view, but also where we're at in value for redraft as well. We'll start off as the obvious place. Let's look at the 101. So the 101, Ashton Genty. Currently the RB13, currently averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game. Not the fantasy explosion we'd hoped for, although in redraft, I think we were on the side of the fence that felt he was being overdrafted at that point. But at the same time, far from a bust pick. I'd written here, because I was starting to get these notes ready over the weekend. The workload is there, and then he had like no workload at all this weekend, which was concerned. But then again, what was the point when you're looking as abysmal as the Raiders did? Why would you bother risking him? Redraft, I think he could well still come through as a sort of player that if he explodes at the later half of the season, all is forgiven. If you've got into the playoffs and he's hitting top form, then you are happy as anything. And we could look back and wonder why we ever questioned it. Dynasty, I'm not worried in the slightest. We expect too much immediately because of the minority of players in it. We look back a few weeks ago, the numbers that Derrick Henry put up, the numbers that Nick Chubb put up in the first season. James Cook, who was having a really good start. So this is the numbers he was putting up. It doesn't always hit year one, so I'm not worried at all. He's currently still on pace for 1,100 yards, 51 receptions, 12 total touchdowns. That's not a bad rookie season, is it?
Yeah,
The worry is
perfectly good.
The worry is, after how shocking this week was, a few of those scattered in, especially if they happen during the playoffs, it could let you down massively. Amari Hampton, obviously, unfortunately, out injured as the breakout happened, but 15.4 fantasy points per game in the games he's featured in. If he returns back at full strength, you'll be happy in absolutely all formats. And I stand by my preseason hot take that he'll outperform Genty. I might need to adjust that to be fantasy points per game if Genty plays the full season. But from what we've seen so far, you can be very pleased with Hampton, where you took him in redraft and if you picked him up in your rookie drafts as well. A player that we mentioned last week because we felt we'd not mentioned him very much, Ted McMillan, 11.9 fantasy points per game. He's been quietly all right. Only 2 top 24 weeks so far, but I think he'll finish the season as a solid wide receiver 2 option overall. The question from a dynasty perspective remains, is Bryce Young good enough? Xavier Legette getting targeted 11 times to McMillan's 5 this week was interesting. Let's see what a full game with the Red Rifle brings next week. Obviously, I spoiler alert now. Andy Dalton, Ted McMillan, secret stack of the week on our DFS show.
Oh, really? Oh, hot! That is a nice
route
hot,
one,
hot
isn't it?
the
It's the route I go, isn't it? He's en route to 1,000-yard season, which puts him in solid company. And I think it's going to be fancy relevant for years to come. It's just, is it going to be as a top tier talent or is it going to be a nice piece on your roster? And then rounding up the top 4, Travion Henderson, 6.7 fantasy points per game. One word and one word only, disappointing. The job share is fairly even with Stevenson up until this week. The fact that this week only 2 carries to Stevenson's 18 and James's 5 is concerning. I'm going to put it out there. Is Stevenson droppable in redraft?
Do you mean what, Stevenson or Henderson?
Oh, sorry, not Steve. So is Henderson droppable in redraft at this point?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've benched him in. I've got him in a couple of places, and I've benched him. Yeah, he's not getting me the points I need.
I can guarantee if I want to bring the breakout into existence, if I drop him to waivers, apps next season he's going. Yeah. Next week he's going off, isn't he? That maybe I'll just do that for the greater good. Yeah, don't rule out a mid-late season breakout though. Just it feels
There's no sign of it.
No, I'm gonna say improbable at the minute. I don't see a route. I've not seen anything that evidences that at all at the minute. Moving on though, Ed. The name coming into the draft, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned him earlier, Travis Hunter. He's averaged 9 fantasy points per game. I mean, I've written down exactly as we feared. Maybe that's a bit too extreme, but exactly as we expected from a fantasy perspective. Definitely not. He's advertised as wide receiver 1 on Sleeper when I checked, which clearly is wrong. This week was his first fantasy score in excess of 10 points. Which is not what people were drafting when they were drafting him, and they were drafting him on his name. It remains to be seen if that score against the Rams is a breakout or a one-off, an outlier. But his workload has gone up in the last couple of weeks in what, let's be honest, has been a bit of a misfiring Jags offense. We did kind of predicate everything we said about the Jags preseason was that it was reliable on T-Law stepping up to the mark and making the most of his weapons. And I think T-Law's been underwhelming, to say the least. So I expect a couple more good weeks from Travis Hunter, but whether he'll ever be a fancy beast, I think is unlikely. Judkins, I mean, 13.1 fancy points per game. There was a route to him being running back 1 in Cleveland, but we didn't know how the backfield would shake down alongside Dylan Sampson, the fellow rookie, and Jerome Ford. Well, I don't think there's any doubt now. This is Judkins' bad backfield, isn't it?
Yeah. he was very efficient on what he did this week. I think there was also the doubts of the legal situation, wasn't the preseason, that meant that actually, I think if you've got him in redraft or best ball, you're probably very, very happy with the value you've got, haven't you?
You've got some excellent value. I mean, since week 3, apart from that an aberration against the Steelers, he's averaged over 20 touches and a touch under 100 rushing yards a game. En route for a 1,000-yard season, and I can only see him getting better. He's currently RB15, and I would not be surprised if he crept towards the top 10 if he carries on improvement.
Can I throw in next week then that if Judkins is a hero next week, I've just thought Juddy and Tuddy. We need to make sure we get that into a hero show at some point.
Duly noted. I'll make a note on that. RJ Harvey, 7.9 fantasy points per game. Watch this space really with RJ Harvey. He's very much played second fiddle to J.K. Dobbins, who's clearly the lead back, which is something we highlighted pre-season. He's only had one fantasy relevant performance against the Bengals in week 4. And the involvement in the receiving game has been promising. I'd say put a pin in him and come back to him next year. If you drafted him in redraft, hoping a lot from him, then you've been disappointed. But I think there's still hope for him from a dynasty point of view. Let's see what happens with Dobbins. He's only on a 1-year contract in Denver, I think. So who knows what will happen there next year. And rounding off my little section is, probably one of the biggest rookie performances of the season, Tyler Warren, 14.5 fantasy points per game. Incredibly impressive start to the season. He's just been relentlessly consistent in an offense that has surpassed all expectations and then some. He's been a tight end 1 every week bar 2. He's tight end 3 overall, averaging 7 targets a game. Found the end zone in his last 3 matches, so he's got a taste for that now as well. We expected him to be good. You know, him and Loveland were the standout tight ends in the class. And he came into a brilliant situation, but this is much better than expected. And, you know, another rookie tight end behemoth. We're getting used to those now.
So next up at 9 and 10, I think this is the clearest evidence that we actually haven't got a clue when it comes to our rookie drafts. So Emma Craig Booker, 17.8 fantasy points a game. What can we say? He's a player that we and many others felt had the potential to have a big season, but it's been the perfect storm for him of injuries around him, leaving that big role. Him proving he's absolutely the real deal. The fact that we said in preseason, Baker, what's he most excited about this year? He said Egbuka. Turns out he was speaking sense. Factoring in his time missed for injuries, currently on pace for 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, and currently has a yard per target of 11.17 and 17.4 yards per catch, the second highest amongst players with 20 plus receptions, of which there are 65. 1,400 yards is the 4th most of all time, Justin Jefferson. So hopefully he's back to form as soon as possible after returning from that injury, because he's on course for a huge season. Let's put the marker out there, though. Puka Nacua, currently the most rookie receiving yards of all time with 1,486. I would love to see him getting. That's something I'd really like to track in the last 4 or 5 weeks, see if we're kind of on target for that. He's proven value in every format. If you got me Dynasty rookie drafts, you got the 101 at a bargain price. However, if you were torn about Egbuka, you weren't quite sure, and you thought you'd take a gamble on a running back that's landed in what looks like a really good situation in Pittsburgh, a running back that was being highly touted, and you went for Caleb Johnson, you've got 0.17 fantasy points per game. There's not a great deal you can say when he's had 14 attempts and only turned to 36 yards. Chances are, I think legitimately, this is me being a little bit tongue cheek, but I reckon if we actually timed it, I could be right. I think he spends more time putting on his war paint than just carrying the ball at the minute.
You're probably right.
Over to you for another currently disappointment, but one that I think is more understandable.
Yeah, Colston Loveland. I'm particularly disappointed because I invested in him in a few leagues. He's only averaging 3.2 fantasy points per game. Struggled to make an impact in what's been a kind of stuttering offense. The Bears. He's been injured, so has missed time. but 8 total receptions this season show how little he's been used. And it's not like Cole Kmet has been playing lights out either. Williams just hasn't been using his tight ends in the receiving game. So neither of them have done much. Again, watch this space. He's not playable at the moment, but he's still in a good situation and he's got the talent to come good. So if not this season, it might be next season. And rounding off the top 12, the first round, Matthew Golden, an interesting one, at 7.9 fantasy points per game. He's slotted perfectly into the frustratingly unpredictable Green Bay receivers room. He is just made for that receivers room, averaging about 5 targets a game. He's had several double-figure fantasy scores, but yet to score a touchdown. And I think it'd be pushing it to call him a reliable flex play at the moment. It's difficult to say anything with any confidence about any Packers receiver, but there is a chance for him to emerge from the pack. I'm just not sure it will be this season, but I would not be surprised to see a kind of sophomore breakout from him next year.
So that's round 1. But what we've also wanted to look at is some players that at this stage are representing some really good rookie draft value as well. So first up, the first player drafted according to ADP in the second round, Cam Scatterbo, who I think we felt we were both excited by. I think you were very slightly higher than me because you got him in places where I was trying to get him just before me in many situations. 16.7 fantasy points per game. We've spoken about a lot the last few weeks, and rightly so. What a character. What a player. He was useful before Tracy went down with injury, and he stepped up in his absence. 4.12 yards per carry is pleasing so early in his career. His use in the passing game adds to the appeal. Great value in all formats, to be honest, at this point. I'm going to say I have a little bit of worry about his longevity, considering his play. His head is a weapon, I think, in his mind. It's just another thing you can use to get through people. So longevity-wise, as a multi-year dynasty asset, I don't know, maybe this is me being far too over-analytical based on a very small sample size at the minute. But I think he's the exact sort of player that if I had him and I was in a rebuild dynasty team, I would see his value as higher to me in trade pieces at the minute and picks than using him as a cornerstone to build my roster around. However, I'm sure there's several people that will completely disagree with that, and I would understand that. That's just, I think, if I was looking to rebuild dynasty roster and I had him, my team is a really good trade piece right now.
I think I know what you mean about his longevity. He doesn't really take care of himself, does he? You kind of wince every time he explodes into contact. So yeah, it could be something that comes back to bite him.
Corey Krosky-Merritt, so he was the late hype player in pre-season, and he's sort of returned on that. Only one top 12 week, 4 weeks. Well, I've let you down though. The jury's out for me until I've seen more. And I think, to be honest, I personally think he's a player that, because there was a nice narrative around him late in the draft season, people like to get a value pick. And I think people sometimes romanticize that a bit too much and then inflate value. I personally, that's what's happened here with JCM. His average yards per carry of just over 5 yards is impressive, but can he maintain that? And his streak goes on as people have more tape on him. Last 2 weeks, 3.59 yards per carry in week 6, 2.54 in week 7. I'm not sold at the minute. But yeah, time will tell.
And we've got to talk about Jackson Dart. We mentioned him earlier, he's just been incredibly impressive. I don't think anyone expected him to come in and make the impact that he has, but he's taken his opportunity with both hands. If we take out weeks 2 and 3, where he took just 2 snaps, in the 4 full games that are counting, he's averaging 22.1 fantasy points per game. I mean, that's incredible. That's kind of like top 5 fantasy form. Now, that won't continue, but he's a dual threat quarterback. He's got weapons in the likes of Scatterbo and, Wan'Dale Robinson and people like that have stepped up to the mark as well. It's genuinely exciting. I think, New York have been in the doldrums for a while, haven't they, the Giants? So I think to have someone as exciting as him alongside Cam Scatterbo is exciting for real life as well as fantasy. football. So yeah, I think barring anything major, unless Dylan Gabriel has some second half of the season like we've never seen before, I think he has definitely eclipsed Cam Ward as the top rookie quarterback.
It's just amazing that this exists. This excites this at a point where Malik Neighbours is out. Like,
Of course.
If Neighbours was in there as well, how
Yeah.
exciting would this Giants offense be?
Yeah, of course, forgot about Neighbours. Yeah, if he had that as well, it would be incredibly exciting. And I just wanted to mention Harold Fanning, 9.6 fantasy points per game for a tight end is very solid. One of the biggest surprises of the season. We did talk about his talent in our tight end rookie show. I remember talking about him, but his situation just didn't look great, as it looked like David Njoku was the clear tight end 1 in Cleveland. But Fanning's tight end 10 now, and Njoku's tight end 18. Fanning's been a solid play at tight end with 4 of 7 weeks above 11 fantasy points. He's averaging 6 to 7 targets a game, only 1 touchdown so far. And it's even more impressive when you look at the QB situation in Cleveland. It's very much been in flux. So I think that kind of makes what he's achieved, just the more impressive.
Just a couple of other notables I just wanted to throw in the mix. So Mason Taylor, and I mention him every week, so I had to mention him here. Talk about rookies. 2 top 12 tight end finishes so far and could be a significant value after being 210. I think more likely what we're seeing 1 for 2026. And hopefully there's a better QB for the Jets by that point for Mason Taylor's value. Trey Harris. So drafted at 204 and a player that was highly regarded, especially pre-Keenan Allen re-signing with the Chargers, pre-Quentin Johnston remembering how to catch a football. Hopefully he'll be someone we see more of or talk more about heading into year 2. I think he's the exact sort of player that if Allen moves on again after this year, if Johnston doesn't finish the season consistently, is the exact sort of player I'm going to sell myself the story as being a year 2 breakout at wide receiver. So expect more Trey Harris talk next off season. Cam Ward, we didn't speak much about him pre-season. Not spoke about him much in the season. I won't talk about him much now. QB 33 currently. High of QB. So highest score, 12.96, week 3 against the Colts. In fairness, he's had a tough schedule. In fairness, Titans aren't very good. So I don't think we can really judge him as a player in his career from an NFL or fantasy perspective at this point. It's a turnover every game, including 5 forced fumbles, that is a worry. There was a couple of moments this week where it's just, what are you doing? And I don't know. He's not had a great start to his career. And I think watch a player like Cam Ward is worth remembering that this trend of quarterbacks starting and expected to run the show in year 1 is still a relatively new trend and something we don't see very often. So, yeah, jury's still out for Cam Ward, and hopefully we see what we're hoping to see at some point next season. However, there is a route to every quarterback being started as the injuries start to mount up and the bye weeks kick in as well. And we've spoken about thematic injuries through the season, and this weekend was quarterbacks were the main headlines at this point. So Bryce Young, MRI reveals high ankle sprain, so he's out week 8 and possibly longer. Andy Dalton's back. Lock him in with Ted McMillan as the Red Rifle zeroes his sights on the end zone with Mr. McMillan. Jaden Daniels, time of recording, during MRI on his knee. I've not seen anything about that yet. Darren Waller exited with a pectoral injury. I mean, you and I know, obviously, when you're kind of just big units like ourselves, had a pectoral injury, it completely derails you, doesn't it?
Well, that worries me, Darren Waller, because he's built of glass, isn't he? So if I was, I've got some shares in Waller and I just plugged him back in and was enjoying his kind of resurgence. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Mike Evans, honestly, I'm gutted for Mike Evans. He's one of those players, regardless of the team you support, is impossible not to love as a player. Broken collarbone after he'd returned from his hamstring injury, so he's out for most of the season. That's a crap way for the 1,000 yards after 1,000 yards to 1,000 yard streak to end, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we can rule that out now, can't we?
Unless he's going to come and stick up a monster performance in the last couple
week
of weeks.
18.
Yeah. And then Nico Collins left the game with a concussion as well, so one to monitor. That's what we know for now with regards to new injuries, but we will do a full injury update on our streaming pick show this Friday. Ed, over to you, though, for our waiver wire picks and tips for this week.
Yeah, as always, we've got half a dozen potential names to keep an eye on when your waivers open. So we mentioned him earlier. He was a hero. Oronde Gadsden. He's going to be the hottest prospect on the wire this week after that monster performance against the Colts. 7 of 9, 164 yards and a touchdown. Only 11% rostered. It's not a flash in the pan. Back-to-back weeks with over 8 targets. So I think he might be worth some of your fab, as he could be a reliable tight end option going forward. So one to look at. We've got to mention Joe Flacco. Just what I want to mention him. 15% rostered. Backed up that solid fantasy performance against Green Bay. Some garbage time points there, but a much more impressive showing against the Steelers. And as I wrote this, he was QB6 on the week. Jets and Bears before the bye, so he could be a very good option to plug in, especially if the likes of Tua and Kyler continue to frustrate you. And Kyle Monangai, we've also mentioned, he's like Gadsden, is 11% rostered. Just be very careful, as I think this week's workload against the Saints is probably going to be a one-off. Swift is the lead back, and Monangai has only averaged about 5 touches before week 7. So I'd be dubious of investing too much fab, if any, on him, to be honest. This
is the tricky point of season when you're looking at fab, isn't it? Because you're working out what you've got left, what you want to save towards the end of the season. I always try to leave about kind of $4 just to put a $1 in to get my defenses for each week of the playoffs as well, just to guarantee those. So yeah, you have to be cautious with what you've got at this point and decide where to allocate it. But you've got 3 more options as well for us.
Yeah, Brashard Smith's an interesting one, the running back in Kansas City. He's listed as a running back, but until this week, he's had very little involvement in the running game. He's becoming a fairly solid target for Mahomes, averaging close to 4 receptions over the last 4 weeks. Is his score of 13.1 this week something you can expect every week? Probably not, but if you're in a bind, he might help you out. Jalen Lane is 4% rostered, wide receiver in Washington. It was he, not Moore or McCaffrey, who led the Commanders in receiving against the Cowboys. However, when Debo and McLaurin are back, he's unlikely to feature much. A risky play, even if he is the top target. And Kamara DK, is that what we're going for?
Mm-hmm.
DK, the wide receiver in Tennessee, 2% rostered, got his first touchdown and his first fantasy relevant week against the Patriots, as he hauled in all 4 of his targets for 70 yards. I mean, Cam Ward and the Titans' offense are struggling, so it's difficult to rely on any of their receivers. However, Ridley, Lockett, and Elikayamana have all been very underwhelming. So that, there's a route to DK continuing to increase his workload and fantasy relevance. Maybe worth picking up if you've got room on your bench, just to see if he backs up this week's performance with another solid week 8.
Well, there we go, Ed. Another banger in the books. We've got our preview show coming out tomorrow. So we're a bit later with the show than usual because our technical difficulties because of the AWS global show. Even we can't do anything about global internet outages, unfortunately. And we will have our streaming show on Friday. No DFS specific show this week because I'm off on my hollybobs at the weekend. But we will have some Fancy Game Day Red Hot Bits looking at some game lines in that streaming show as well. A little bit of a bonus in there. That's all from me, though, Ed. I've got nothing further to add. Anything you wish to impart on the viewers before we leave?
I just want to mention yet another devilishly handsome man on the screen. We keep sticking them up for the viewers.
So we'll be back next week for another devilishly handsome man. And if Ed has caved in and put Joe Flacco on his display behind him. That's all from me, all from Ed. So Malcolm, without further ado, please take us home.
You have been listening to the team from TH Fantasy Football. For more content, Follow @TH_fantasy_NFL on Twitter and Instagram.